Hello, my name is Shirley Self, and I'm here to talk astrology. Today I wanted to talk about Pluto, specifically the Pluto return that the United States is going to be experiencing in the year 2022. And we're going to have that Pluto return 3 times, as Pluto first hits 27 degrees of Capricorn, 32, and then retrogrades over 27 degrees Capricorn, 32, and then comes back again to 27 degrees Capricorn, 32. And this will happen in February and July, and the last hit in the end of December. So I thought I would give some context to the astrology of what's happening by talking about the moon phases, because the moon phases are cool. What they'll do is tell you where you find guidance, where you what you need to bring to you in order to succeed, the tools you need in order to succeed, and what success looks like. And within that context, the astrology plays out. So the United States, our context is we are moon phase 18. This is up here in the, this is the air quarter. Here we've got earth, water, and air, and fire. And so moon phase 18, we are in the air quarter. And the interesting thing about the moon phase 18 is it's one of the wisdom phases. And wisdom doesn't mean wisdom phases don't mean that you're born with it. It means that you fight mightily in order to gain it. And moon phase 18 is also an initiation phase, like moon phase 12. Moon phase 18 sees killing off of the past in order that a new future may be created. And so notice that this Scorpio the sign up there, 18 holds the complete decadent of Pisces. And 18 is a phase of sacrifice. Sacrifice of the past. Something we haven't done, the United States has not done very well, sacrifice the past. That every man a king. And the kings are what's the problem here. The kings are engorging themselves off of the common good. And so there isn't that much common good left for the commoners, because the kings are living way too high on the hog, have virtually tilted the scales of justice way over in their favor. And, which reminds me that our Saturn, United States Saturn, is in Libra, the scales of justice, and it is way tilted over in favor of the rich in this country. And that's one of the things, you know, the moon phase 18 is to give up, is those ideals that guided governments in the past, dictatorship, total power, total control of all resources. And that's something we haven't managed to give up yet. We're still not doing our Cancer stellium. We have our horoscope has 4 planets in Cancer, plus the vertex and the Fortuna in Cancer. And Cancer is security issues. And but unfortunately, our moon is in Aquarius, and the moon in Aquarius, I think, is probably the most insecure moon that you can have, because its issue is Aquarius doesn't commit to security. Aquarius commits to furthering its understanding of the real world. That's why Aquarius tends to stand off and watch. It's opposed to Leo, which gets involved. And the United States has the South Node in Aquarius. of not getting involved, not doing our Cancer horoscope, our Cancer powers. And they are formidable. I mean, Jupiter, Venus, Mercury, and the Sun, all in Cancer. It's a powerhouse. And our country, the country we've got, our second house has Pluto in it. And Pluto is virtually riches. We're an incredibly rich country. And but what we have here is Pluto in our house of riches. And so there's this inequality that it grows with every depression and recession. And that's because the capitalism is rigged. That started in 1913 when the Fed was signed into business by Woodrow Wilson. That's when the scales were tilted way over into favor of the rich. So, moon phase, we are a moon phase 18, and we as a people, individually, you and I, do not are not giving up the past and initiating ourselves into usefulness. That's what moon phase 18 is about. This is the air quarter is the quarter of the making of the king. The only human power, virtually, is the power of our intellect. Our physical power is fairly puny, but our intellectual power is vast and growing at a tremendous rate. This is called the quarter of the king, and here is the king who conquers territory. This is the king on his horse. This is the sitting king. And the downfall of moon phase 19, which is the sitting king, the seated king, the king who administers a conquered territory, is that he will stay on his horse and gallop off in all directions and not accomplish anything within his territory, and not rule his territory properly. So 18 is still the king on his horse, conquering territory. And the territory that the United States should be conquering is, our ascendant is ruled by Jupiter. Is virtually to make every man a king, and that or secure. You notice that Jupiter isn't in Leo; it's in Cancer, and to make every man secure is within our capacities. But it needs all of us to get together and to demand this security. And that security has to do with, our ascendant is ruled by the Jupiter in Sagittarius. That's why people in Europe think we're all cowboys, Sagittarius. Our mask is over there, got Mars and Uranus. They're over there at our mask. And that's movement toward freedom. And that is a fight for freedom. And that's what we're supposed to be doing. People in this country fighting for freedom. And freedom from, let's think about Aquarius a minute. Let's look at this chart. Aquarius, now, inconjuncts are what you have to work with. It's not a choice. It's what you have to deal with in order to survive. Okay, for Aquarius, that is what you have to do to survive. It's over here at Cancer and in Virgo. And that means a commitment to security and work, hard work. And so in order for Aquarius to survive, and that's what the working man in the United States does, he survives by fighting, having to work so hard for his security, virtually gives up his creativity here. because he's working all the time. And the fact of the matter is that the working man in the United States, if half of it went to his own benefit, half of that product from his work went to his own benefit, it would be a great thing and would be enough to survive on. And then the other half, the half of the working man in the U.S. does, enriches the rich, the already rich. It rewards money investment. It's called capitalism. So if we didn't have to enrich, work half of our lives to enrich people who are already rich, we would have the freedom to, humans are incredibly creative. And each human is different from every other human. And what we have to offer, if we were free to offer that, is incredible and would be transformative of the world. It would make it a humane place too, because it's not having freedom, freedom from want, and freedom from having to spend all our time working. Anyway, I think that's what the United States is. That's our mask, is work toward that kind of freedom, move toward that action. Mars is action, decisions toward that lead us toward greater and greater freedoms, because the freedoms are, they say, oh, people just become lazy. No, we're incredibly creative, and to have the free time to express that creativity, that would be so exceedingly cool. And it would so I think that Pluto coming back is encouraging people, us, the common folk, to take back our power. You already see crowdsourcing and virtually a reassertion of states' rights. Cities in Colorado, for instance, demanding that they have some say in who comes and drills in their park. Well, it's not quite that bad, but getting close. What the Sagittarius, I think, means in this horoscope here is Moon Phase 18 is about natural law. And this is the natural law of human interactions. And Mars does not rule that natural law of human interactions. Jupiter does. Jupiter rules our laws. Now, Libra rules our man-made laws, but Jupiter rules the natural law, the way things need to be in order to not only survive, but to create and to grow. So the natural law of human interactions is, notice the Uranus over there in the on the 7th house cusp. And that, according to Liz Green, it virtually means you virtually have to take other people the way they are. You have to accept them the way they are, because it's Uranus. And Uranus don't give a damn what you think about it. It does what it needs to do. And if you try to force Uranus, you will radicalize him. He will become more and more extreme in reaction to your directions. You're trying to control him. So a Moon Phase 18 is all about, learning to deal with the world as it is. That Uranus over there in the 8th house. Learning to deal with the world as it is. Giving up the ideals of the past, that we all have to be kings and we all have to live the rich life, which is incredibly wasteful of our resources. That's that South Node down there in Aquarius in the 2nd house of our resources. And the Pluto there, you know, means that we're all so insecure, so that's the way we respond to that insecurity. Is not instead of getting down to the bottom of things, of hoarding, of buying more and more, and always the new stuff. So that's let me see. Oh, the creative genius of the United States. Now this is our goal. Our goal. The creative genius is powers that that one had gained in previous incarnations that are now brought to the fore in a whole new scheme, a whole powers in a whole new context. And our creative genius is this Neptune right up here, right there, Neptune. Our creative genius is actually at 25 degrees, and our Neptune is at 22 degrees, which is really interesting. The 22nd degree is a degree of mastery. And what's really interesting is that the Neptune rules democracy. Democracy. Neptune tends to make everyone equal. That's its goal, is to show people that they're one, that you are no better or worse than the guy next door. And in the big picture, that is totally true. So that Neptune is our creative genius. It's our goal. It's a spiritual goal. The creative genius is always a spiritual goal, no matter if it's found in, no matter what quarter it's found in, no matter what sign it's found in. So the creative genius is what we're after. And what we're after here is forgiveness. Neptune in Virgo in the 9th house is forgiveness. Forgiveness and democracy and acceptance and oneness. And that's our goal. And that's what we have to use. We have to use our own. We have to fight for our personal freedoms. That's Uranus-Mars over there in the 7th. That's our mask. That's the way through. And to fight for democracy, which is that Neptune up there in the 9th house of religion, spirit, and foreigners. What else? Beliefs. So the Neptune-Mars square is a real issue here, because that's used so easy. We are so vulnerable to propaganda. The Neptune-Mars square will make you vulnerable to diseases, and so we're vulnerable to the disease of propaganda. And we need to use that Mercury-Pluto skepticism to get to the bottom of things. So that's our moon phase 18. Now, it's our sun, in order to shine here. And the sun in a moon phase 18, the sun is needs to take over. Needs to take over. It needs to decide on what's important at a moon phase 18. And the moon tends to hold on to the past, to old ideals, and that's why there's this uncomfortable aspect between the moon and the sun in moon phase 18. It's called a sesquiquadrate. It's 5/8. And the aspects that are divided, aspects that are 2 and 4 and 8 and 16 are all difficulties, and they're creative, because they're the things that you have to do in order to, the decisions you have to make in order to accomplish anything. So that's a U.S. chart. That's where we are. That's our birth chart. Okay, let's look at our Pluto return. And I want to look at the secondary progressions for that Pluto return. Because they're really interesting. In 2022, our United States will be a moon phase 26. Notice the Pluto is, right, let me get prepared here. The Pluto is in the 5th house, conjunct the South Node, and so the oligarchy, the plutocracy, continues its wasteful ways, and that's what the 5th house is doing. It's always having a good time. So those with power are still having a good time. But we, as a country, are at a moon phase 26. Let's look at a moon phase 26. Moon phase 26 is the body of fate of 18. It's and so what happens is, well, an example is probably the best. My favorite example of 18 and 26 is 26 has to pay for what 18 fails to do. And our president Thomas Jefferson was a moon phase 18. And toward the end of his life, his greatest regret was not having begun the process of emancipation while he still had the power and the cohorts to get it passed, because he saw the growing powers of the southern states, and he knew that he was a humanitarian. I know he was a slave owner. That was his dilemma. It's I think that emancipation came too close to what he would really have to sacrifice in order to do what he needed to do as a moon phase 18. I think he drew the line at emancipating his own slaves. So we come to the Civil War, and our Abraham Lincoln is our moon phase 26. And so Abraham Lincoln carries that terrible burden that Thomas Jefferson could have easily shouldered. Well, we say easily, but he had these slaves, and he was quite attached to some of them, and he had this lifestyle, and he was quite attached to this lifestyle. And that's where we are in this United States, is we have this lifestyle, and we're quite attached to this lifestyle. But, well, the United States progressed chart in 2022 will be at a moon phase 26, a realization of opportunities missed, mistakes made, changes not agreed upon. And 26 is a very difficult phase. It calls it the Hunchback, and he has a poem in which he explains clarity is the curse of a moon phase 26. As you can see everything you've done wrong, and you know how you are at fault and what you are guilty of. And so in 2026, we will be a moon phase 26, acknowledging and seeing clearly what we neglected to do back when we had the choice, back when we had the opportunity. Our right now in 2019, our progress chart is a moon phase 24, which is excellence, the craftsman. And it is at this time that we need to be looking at our difficulties and analyzing our difficulties and coming to some experiments on how to fix our difficulties, theories, and that's Aquarius for you, theories. So it behooves us to do that, to start working toward what we can see and will need to be done. And next year we will meet a moon phase 25, which is year revolutionary. Now the moon phase 25 carries with it all the power of the whole that you have gained in the whole cycle. Remember, that's what you're about here, is power. The power of the human being. And here we're working on spiritual power. We're working on our Jupiter in Cancer. Jupiter is exalted in Cancer. So right now we're at, next year at the election, we will be at moon phase 25, the revolutionary and power. And so the power of the people. Let's see how that comes forward, because it can make a difference. It can make a tremendous difference. Because moon phase 26, where we will be in 2022, moon phase 26 suffers not only from the vacillation of the inability for 18 to move forward and to make the sacrifice needed. Not only suffers from that, but suffers from the abuse of power at moon phase 25. And it's basic power, it's sexual power. And it isn't sex, it's power, it's sexual power, it's Pluto. It's the power of destruction. Pluto, you know, it rules, it's the higher octave of Mars, and it rules Scorpio. Trust me, Mars still rules Scorpio. Pluto is simply a higher octave of Mars, and so it is when you encounter Pluto, don't expect Mars, because Pluto is much more destructive than Mars. But Mars also rules Aries, and in the esoteric astrology, Aries is ruled by Pluto. And so we've got the destructive power of Pluto in Scorpio, and we have got the creative, new beginning power of Pluto. Let's start over in Aries here. And but first, trust me, the destruction has to come and eliminate the old. Now we've got Saturn and Pluto in Capricorn, and so those old structures. The problem with Capricorn is it can get really rigid. Capricorn rules cement, and so those things that are set in cement are gonna go. They're gonna go. Pluto in our own chart, in the United States chart, those things set in cement, those destruction, those areas of destruction. You know, the thing about our Pluto in the second house is that they have plotted out, the powerful and the greedy have plotted out areas of this country that are called sacrifice areas. And trust me, the people in those areas are also sacrificed. And if you ever see a aerial view of mountaintop removal in Appalachia, and you know the terrible result of the destruction of their jobs, destruction of their communities, the people of Appalachia are sacrificed too. We now have a sacrificed area in the San Juan Basin of Arizona or New Mexico, and it's being sacrificed to the oil industry. And it will go bust, and the people will go bust, and that's the way they do it. That's the way the world goes around. You're up one day, and the next you're down. But let's see, what do we want to do? I was looking at the secondary progress chart, and our secondary progress chart has what's interesting is it's this Saturn-Venus opposition in our remember this is moon phase 26, and the Saturn in the third house, and the Venus up there in the ninth. So everybody blaming everybody. Well, you did it. Well, you did it. Well, you did it. And it's a separative. It's not a cooperative opposition at all. It's very separative. And but it looks to me like it might be forming a lot of groups forming with a goal in mind. Groups concerned about the future. That would be Venus and Taurus, people who actually love the world and are still opposed by Saturn, which still wants to rip, rape, and destroy. Look at the Saturn and the Pluto. Saturn in the 3rd house, Pluto in the 5th, are in mutual reception. Saturn in Scorpio, Pluto in Capricorn. So it's ongoing. The destruction is ongoing. But it looks like a good time to get to organize. One thing about a moon phase 26 is it sees very clearly what has gone wrong, and it's an incredibly wise moon phase. It sees very clearly what must be done, and that's that Jupiter up there in the 11th house. And notice the North Node is up there in the 11th house. Our Neptune in the 1st house, our Neptune, our democracy, is trying to make a revival. It's trying to revive itself. It's so it looks like we're working. We're at least noticing things. Clarity is not that comfortable at moon phase 26. Let's look at the Pluto return chart. The first Pluto return. Which is a moon phase 18. Are we? Yes. There are. Notice the Venus. There's a Venus-Mars conjunction in Capricorn at 19 degrees. The ascendant is at 19 degrees. They are in conjunct. And this is the Scorpio in conjunct, the life or death in conjunct to our ascendant, to our being. We are being very much, our very existence is being threatened here. The Pluto is in the 8th house, up there with that Mars and Venus. That's our first Pluto return, and it will be in the 8th house. It's an 18, and it says something, decisions need to be made. We've got Gemini, Sagittarius, and the way to do it is to use this Jupiter, and the Jupiter is up there in the 10th house in Pisces and sacrifice. And well, it's in the Cancer Dwad, and there's an awful big issue here about our food supply, the world's food supply. Pluto is really, I think, screwing with the climate change is really screwing with our food supply, and so it could be that we're having to maybe deal with starving people. Our starving people? Well, we've got them. Other starving people, probably foreign starving people. Okay. There's we need to focus. Notice that the Mars and Venus conjunction there, Mars is in Capricorn. It's exalted, and it can do what needs to be done. It very much can do what needs to be done. All it has to do is focus. That's a Mars-Venus. Focus. Know what organizing needs to do, and know what it's Capricorn, so it's government, but it's also us. It's Capricorn has to do with our own personal responsibility, and so it looks like something that will organize us. It looks like an emergency. Will maybe get us organized. This Mars is, Venus is square than Moon, and Moon down there in Libra, and Moon phase 18 is not my fault, it's not my fault, it's not my fault. The sun, however, is in sacrifice because something needs to be done. And we should follow the sun, not the moon. We should follow the sun. It's a moon phase 18. It's time for the solar will to take over. Okay, so let's look at our next Pluto return. It's amazing to me how beautifully it ties in to our own chart. This, let me get it up there a little bit. This is the 11th of July, 2022. The other one, I'm not sure I told you, was 20th of February, 2022. This is the second Pluto return. Pluto's retrograde, they're in the first house. This is a moon phase 12. And the moon phase 12, let me show you here. A moon phase 12 is the creative genius. The creative genius. These two are creative genius to each other. They are spiritually inspiring to each other, guiding each other, giving each other goals. This is the heart of love. And this is the fount of intellect. And so we've got the wisdom of the heart, use this wisdom, and wisdom of the intellect, uses that. A creative genius. As they use each other, as 12 uses 18 as creative genius, which is that focused intellect that knows it can make a difference in the world, and is specializing in the difference it loves to make. It's self-expressive. As 12 attends to that, he will be guided in his transformation. So this is a moon phase 12, which is our creative genius. And the moon phase 12 seeks inner knowledge. It is forced, virtually that sun, is forced to turn inward, connect with the moon, and virtually connect with spirit. This is the initiation of Persephone. And what drives the sun, the solar mind, down into the power chakra is things outside just beat the heck out of him. It's accidents. An accident will happen, and the 12 will have to look inside and say, okay, and what do I do now? And what should I give up? Because this is, moon phase 12 is a struggle with the karmic pig. The struggle with the karmic pig. It's a karmic battle. And the past is virtually, it isn't sacrificed. It's torn away. The karmic pig is us. And that whole needing whatever the past, whatever was ideal in the past, needs to be transformed into what I can become in the future, what I can make of myself, who I can become. And it's through action, it's through work that one becomes. The sixth house is virtually the house of self-mastery. Let's look at this. Virgo has to do with self-mastery, of working and finding oneself. And often you'll have to, be sick and to in order to look and see how you got there. It's and as you work on your weaknesses, the sixth house is your weaknesses. As you work on those weaknesses, you learn the difference between you and other people. You become a much more unique human being, and you master your own powers, your own talents, and that's what Virgo is about. And so, because this Moon phase 12 is right there at the beginning of self-mastery. Accidents will drive us inward to find out what can be done. What can we do here? And not particularly it's not a fun, it's an initiation phase. It is not fun having the past torn off of you because you cling to it, and often leaves bloody stumps behind. Anyway, we've got our creative genius is in this chart here, is at 10 degrees Virgo. So it's ruled by Mercury, and that Mercury is there conjunct the Sun in Cancer. What can we do? What can we do? The Sun in Cancer is very caring. It's a mother. It's not particularly motherly in a fatherly way. It provides for. A moon in Cancer feeds you soup with a spoon. A father in Cancer makes sure that you have soup. So that's our the second Pluto return. Pluto is coming down in the first house, and that is empowering. Pluto in the first house means you're either wrecking yourself or you're using your power. Moon phase 12 doesn't have that much choice about things. He's constantly knocked off his feet if he tries to do things the way he did it before. Here's the last one. It's a phase 6. We're at a phase 6 here on the last pass of the Pluto. And the Pluto is still in the first house. And we've got Capricorn there. A moon phase 6 is interesting. I was pleased to see that, let's look at this guy here. Moon phase 6 is not in there. It's just like, okay, this is new. Moon phase 6 is exceedingly competent. Look at it, it's Gemini in the Libra decan. And so it's a time of, a phase of self-definition. It's a finding its own niche in the world. What can I do in this? Could be a worldwide catastrophe, and it is a worldwide catastrophe. It's called climate change, but I think pretty soon it will be called something more dire. What's our niche here, and what can we do? And we've got Moon phase 6 is virtually, it follows a 5, and a 5 is a powerhouse. It gets out there and does it. You know, it's the Sun and the Moon are together, and they make a difference in the world. And Moon phase 6 kind of cruises because of that. It knows how to do it. It knows how to do it. Its struggle is to find the boundaries of what it's doing, because Moon phase 6 often goes too far, and that's where it finds out, oh, I should have been back there. So that's the danger of a Moon phase 6. So, let's say the powers that be, the Sun in Capricorn, we've got a Venus, Mercury, and Pluto in Capricorn. And that Venus, Mercury, and Pluto is, at this last pass of the Pluto, across our natal Pluto, is conjunct. Has a tremendous amount of power. A tremendous amount of power. And it doesn't have any oppositions. So there's nothing out there to say, whoa, you're going too far. So we'll see what happens. The whole point is the creative genius is down there at Neptune. That Neptune conjunct the Fortuna and the Moon. That Neptune is our creative genius. And that has to do with democracy. And that has to do with everybody being empowered to have a say. Everybody being empowered. It looks like the big whatever will try to take it over. But the creative genius, the way we will achieve success, is if all of us are willing to do our work. The Saturn is in 5 degrees from our natal moon, our natal, and the Saturn in Aquarius. Now Saturn rules Aquarius. You can say Uranus rules Aquarius, but that is the higher vibe of Aquarius. Saturn in Aquarius is, I have a theory, I have a system, I know this will work. And so it's possible that the Saturn will actually, people will actually do something, and notice that it is square Uranus. And so, and that has, the North Node is there, conjunct this Uranus. And that has to do is find your niche, and there you will make a difference. It's a very, this can be a very uniquely and personally empowering chart. Empowering for all of us. The creative genius there is make it a democracy. Be democratic about what needs to be done here, because the power is tremendous to do something. The North Node there, conjunct Uranus, is we can change these. We can change things, and I'm very encouraged by this moon phase 6 chart. Our I'll have one more chart hang in here to show you. We have been, the United States, our path has been in here, is in here. We've been, we are now a craftsman. We will be a crusader next year. The following year, a hunchback. The following year, the saint. Now the saint wants to just, it's not none of my business. I'm going to retire to my gated community and ignore the rest of you. Or the moon 27, the saint. Notice it is in Pisces, sacrifice of the self here, and it's in the Cancer decadent. And wonderful thing about moon phase 27 is that when they're out there, they are like gardeners. They garden people. They garden gardens, and they give, and they water us and help us to grow. And a moon phase 28. It's hard to say anything about a moon phase 28. It's the moon phase of the Fool. It's only incarnates to because it still has physical issues. Moon phase 28 will incarnate if it doesn't recognize the earth, the body, as spirit. This is the lowest vibration of spirit, as spirit is the highest vibration of the body. This is spirit. And in moon phase 26, or 28, sorry, needs to recognize that and work appropriately. And so then in March of 2024, we have a moon phase 1. The sun moon over there in Pisces, in the 7th house. Now that's the mask, the house of the mask. Over here in the house of us, we have Fortuna, and that means decisions. Decisions are important, and chances are good you'll make good decisions. Our Uranus is up there on the midheaven, and so deciding who we are, and maybe even a new image of a true democracy, a freedom-loving country, a freedom-encouraging country. And we've got the security up there in the North Node is in security. The South Node is still in there, in the greedy still are holding on to everything. The North Node is up there into making people secure. making this country, you might call it socialist, but we've got 4 planets and Fortuna into actually making people secure. We just don't, the people haven't demanded that actually happen yet. And so it looks like it's still an issue. But it's a moon phase 1. Moon phase 1. This is high spiritual power. A moon phase 1 just works on whatever needs to be done. And just, okay, it is a very, very powerful person. It needs to recognize the issue of a moon phase 1 is to go from spiritual power to attention and focus upon the physical. To realize that the physical body is the container of this spiritual power, and to recognize this has always been a sacrifice of the physical in order to do whatever we wanted to do. Evel Knievel is up here somewhere right there, I think. Chuck Yeager. I need to know how far and how fast this plane will fly, how high, and I will drive it until it wrecks. So that's a big issue about moon phase 1, is to realize that, to spiritualize the physical, to not sacrifice the physical, to recognize this value. And then we will move to a moon phase 2 and do whatever has to be done. So that's our Pluto return. It looks very difficult, and it looks very doable, and it looks like we're going to have to change our minds about who we are. We are not the new kings. Kings are so wasteful. Good God. And I'm not saying the Taj Mahal isn't beautiful, but so is nature. I've never seen a Taj Mahal more beautiful than a waterfall I saw in Victoria. So that's the change we have to make as a moon phase 1, is to realize that the most valuable thing we have here, the most beautiful thing we have here, is this world, and each other. I'll talk to you later. God and Goddess bless you.